gratitude is that you're all here today and to have this opportunity and for sharing your gratitudes. And I am really grateful for this opportunity to meet with all of you with your bright, shiny faces and your attitudes of gratitude, which is, beautiful. So, and we can skip this because I think you have someone put the bio in, so we can skip that part. I've been in a lot of different therapies. I longest was at Kaiser for 31 years and chief psychologist there, but I have worked in the counseling field for over 46 years. So I'm 81 now because people say, how did you do work at Child and Family Service and mental health, state mental health, and then you're at Kaiser for so long, and I've been in private practice since 2004, since I retired from Kaiser, so that's because I'm 81. So this is just a disclaimer, this is not medical or psychological treatment we'll be using, but it's just for your knowledge and awareness and to use at your discretion. So we all, how many people experience stress? Yes, and I think that's one of the things we're going to be working on, and there's so many things with man-made disasters, financial, health issues, pandemics, relationship issues. We have stress all over the place. And I had the opportunity to work with, I've gone 3 times to New Orleans, post-Katrina, and we're now doing the disaster recovery in Maui, so working on the psychological aspects of Maui. Because of the very sensitive nature, I'm not including any photos from Maui. This is from, I also had the opportunity for 11 years to work with the genocide survivors in Rwanda, and then actually in the more recent years before the pandemic was able to work in the prisons with the perpetrators. We had worked with the survivors the first several years, and then had to work with the people coming out of prison. That was actually more challenging because the masterminds, they're all executed. These are the people who, in the craziness of the genocide, they're looking at their spouses or children are being killed, and they're told, you help, you take this and you kill those people over there, and we will spare the rest of your children. And some people responded to that. Most people did not, and there were instantly children killed in front of them when they were killed, and they were also witness to that. So the people that were in prison were also victims because they were seeing their family being killed. And it's interesting because when we looked at the survivors who we had been working with, and before we worked with them, many of them had a lot of rage and anger, even though we saw them 10 years to 17 years after the genocide, but it's still like it happened yesterday. Still anger, rage, affecting their physical health even, and they were bound and determined, we're going to get them when they come out of prison. And that's, they said, I know that I shouldn't do that, but they felt they lost their entire family. And it's interesting because after they were treated for the traumas, they started to have compassion for the perpetrators because they said, I am so grateful that I'm not in their shoes because they're victims too, like I am. But in addition, they have the burden of what they did because I know they're like me. They were actually good people. But with the genocide, the craziness, the propaganda, all the pressure, they succumb to the pressure and they have to live with that guilt the rest of their life. That's why there were so many suicides in prison. That's why we went to work in the prisons because before they come out, many of them could not face, I don't think I can face the people, although they are already done justice on the grass. You know, they confessed to all the crimes that they did and vowed to make restitution, but still they're carrying so much guilt. So many suicides. So that's why they asked us to go into the prisons to work with the prison. And that was a very successful venture too. So this is actually, when we first started there, this is among the, let's see, there were 400 orphans in this orphanage. And we saw them 10 years after the genocide. And they had flashbacks, nightmares all the time. So they still couldn't concentrate. They couldn't read, write, do their math because of the constant flashbacks and nightmares. So what happened was we then worked with them, and after after they worked through the traumas and the anger and the hurt and the fear, they were able to focus and concentrate. Nightmares remitted, flashbacks remitted, they were able to stay calm and focus. And after 12 years of no progress in their learning, within 1 year, they were able to learn enough to pass the competitive Rwandan exams and get into the regular public schools. So we saw that, and they also had increased sense of self-worth. Of course, now too they can read, write, and do the math. And then they were able to help others. And what was interesting, when we worked with them, we had tried to do a randomized control study. So we had 1/3 of them do thought field therapy, 1/3 do breathing relaxation, 1/3 do the Jacobson tension relaxation. And then 3 days in a row, and we were going to switch we had them randomized, so we we're going to switch their condition. And 3 days in a row. And we thought, even though they're in the same orphanage, they don't have electricity. So we thought, well, we're going to be there from the time they get up, because we have flashlights, we have lights, so we can get there before they wake up. And then as soon as they wake up, of course, we're keeping them busy. And then we keep them busy all day. And then we leave when the sun goes down, because you can't see anyway. And we thought, well, they're going to go to sleep, so that'll be fine. But of course, you know, you're having nightmares. So what happened after the first day, 1/3 each condition, right? The kids who had the TFT, they did the TFT when they woke up with the nightmare, and they said, wow, the nightmare, then the nightmare triggers the flashbacks. So they said, oh, it's good, now I can go back to sleep. So they're fine. But then the kids are doing the breathing relaxation, tension relaxation, they're doing it, but it's not making the nightmares go away, and it's not making the flashbacks go away. So they're still up and they're doing things, and then some of the kids then notice that, you know, these kids are doing something, so they go over and say, what are you doing? Because they didn't know the other kids are doing something different. They said, what are you doing? Oh, we're doing what the Americans showed us. I said, oh, you're not doing it right. You're supposed to do this. So it shows them how to do the trauma treatment that they learned. And remember, these kids cannot read or write. So we couldn't write it out even in their language. They're very kinesthetic though. And, you know, in Africa, they're very kinesthetic. They try to teach me how to dance and I can't follow, but they say it's really simple. You show me, but I can't get it because that's how they are. They learn by doing. So thought field therapy is great. You show them how to do it, they do it a number of times, and they got it perfectly. So when the kids started coming in and all the TFT kids said, worked really well. The other kids said, wasn't working, but Johnny came and showed me how to do this. And so they showed the tapping. So I said, there goes our randomized control study out the window after all our hard work to randomize it. And we said, wait a minute. Let's find out what they did. What did they get shown? Do they remember? They remember. Oh yeah, tell me do this, and they show me how to do it. And we said, okay, write down everything they said, and we found out that all the kids did it correctly. So essentially, we had to change our study. We no longer had a randomized control, but essentially, all the kids except a few had learned thought field therapy the first day. So when we're doing the second day retest, post-test, they all knew TFT. The few that didn't get told what to do, we had to then remove them, so we kept the others. So essentially, it's one condition, because they were doing it correctly, even though they learned from other kids. So that was interesting, because then we told the principal. Of course, most of our interpreters were pastors and priests, so they were at the seminaries and the schools, and they said, wow, the kids can learn from other kids. So they immediately brought it into their schools, and then to this day, all the schools have TFT clubs for the kids, and they help each other. Teachers are trained, so they are the ones who are the advisors when they have more difficulty. But that's how, actually, I don't know if I have that slide here. No, I didn't do that slide. But there is a meta-analysis that shows treatment for trauma for children and adolescents. It shows cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR, whole host of different interventions. And you see the effect sizes are poor. There's one outlier, and that was the TFT study. Okay, so I have this book here, The Overcoming Adversity, and that's, the forward is by David Feinstein, who was a clinical research professor at Johns Hopkins. And we also have, we have the case examples. I'll just go through it very quickly. We have depression, fear and panic, stress and anxiety, anger, rage, trauma, complex issues like dissociation and autism spectrum, physical pain management, and we'll share a little bit of that more. And then we have the treatment for all of the people. The last few chapters have, some of them have pictures, because in the last few chapters we are then working with sharing some of the stories from Rwanda and their treatment. And the appendix to the book, and it's also available on my website, which all the research articles are to it. The appendix says how to do it, with where the tapping points are. It's also on the website. And the commonly used algorithms, those things are in the book too. Okay. Oh, and thought field therapy is considered a polyvagal informed therapy. Polyvagal theory was developed by, oh, I have a pointer. That's Dr. Stephen Porges, who wrote Polyvagal Theory. Polyvagal Theory, I read his books, and I said, oh, it makes sense, but if you ask me to explain it, I have to tell you, I couldn't explain it. It makes sense, but I can't explain it. So in this book here, in this hand, is polyvagal, let's see, the applications of polyvagal theory, clinical applications of polyvagal theory. In that book, there is an energy psychology practitioner who's actually the head of ASAP, the International Association for Energy Psychology. And he has a gift of putting things in simple analogies. And he explains polyvagal theory is an advance of, like, you know, the central nervous system, fight, flight versus relaxation response, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system function. It's an advance of that, but Robert Schwartz describes it like there's one lane of the freeway going from your brain to your body. However, there are 4 lanes of the freeway going from your body to your brain. So when you look at, if you've got 4 lanes going from your body to your brain, 80% of the impact is from your body. And that's why we look at the shortcomings of the traditional therapies, which I used for most of my life before I learned EMDR and thought field therapy. The cognitive therapies work with the mental. Most of our traditional therapies works on the thoughts and attitudes and beliefs. That's 20%, so we can get an improvement. However, oftentimes it falls short, because we still feel that pit in the stomach, we feel the tension in our body, we still have the heart racing. If you have the somatic symptoms still, even though you say there's no tiger in the room, but if your heart is palpitating and you feel tense, you're going to look at what's wrong. Am I sick? Am I having a heart problem? Is there something going on? So we're trying to make an explanation for it, because the somatic memory will override. The somatic symptoms will override. And that's the beauty of energy psychology, like thought field therapy. It works on the body level. So we're going to actually work on the meridians that are used in acupuncture and acupressure. And without the needles, you can actually, like we were sharing before we started, how you can even do it by mentally focusing on these meridians, and you can actually calm down the distress. It's held in the body memory. So let's take a look at maladaptive responses, the freeze, or do nothing, so we could actually sink into depression with freezing. Flight, we can minimize or deny, and we can try to numb it out with alcohol or drugs. And then the fight reaction is we can act out, we can get raging outward, taking it out on others, or raging inward when we have self-harm, self-sabotage. So those are not really very adaptive. We can learn healthier strategies and build coping muscles with sets of repetitions. And Carol does that with the body and brain yoga too, in a different way. We can retrain the neural pathways in the brain, like we saw with the singer with the panic attacks. And we can create an improved autonomic response pattern. So how does the thought field therapy in fact change? This is, these similar ones are on my website, and I'll show that at the end if you want to look at all the research studies. But I'll just show you one with work stress. This is a person in his 60s, and he has work stress. His SUD before treatment was a 10. After treatment, this is before treatment, this is after treatment, in the same session. This was done at Kaiser. And before treatment, he had a SUD of 10. After treatment was a SUD of 0. Now this heart rate variability we're using is like a Holter monitor. Holter monitor is a 24-hour read of the heart rate variability. We're using a 5-minute read. So we can do before treatment, do the thought field therapy in between, and then do after treatment. So the only difference between the before and after is what we did in between, which was the thought field therapy, in the same session. So when we look at this now, we see total power on the numbers are blocked in over there, so we can't see it. But this one was, I think, 340. This is about, I'd say 300, but I'm not sure. And then this one, the scale is different. But you can see this is the before and after. you can see the total power. You can see this is like a fourfold difference between the before and the after. So this power has jumped up fourfold. Very low frequency, high frequency, a step pattern, that's not very good. This is preferable. You want the V, the inverted V mountain pattern. This is the autonomic balance, fight or flight versus relaxation response. And you can see he's way out of the balance here. But after treatment, right into autonomic balance. And this is, when we're looking at heart rate variability, this is what we're measuring with the EKGs and EEGs. We are measuring the bioelectrical flow through the body. And that's what we're working with the meridians, the bioelectrical flow through the body. That's why we could actually study it with looking at the meridians, looking at their bioelectrical flow. Okay. And this is the actual tachogram. You can see the tight constriction of the variability of the heart rate, which is not healthy. And you can see how it opened up after treatment. That's why we go to aerobics exercise, we go to body and brain, do a lot of active things to raise the variability in the heart rate. Because then if you have to run for the bus or jump out of the way of something, you won't get a stroke or a heart attack because your body has that conditioning. So how TFT works, there are a number of things we're looking at, but basically we're looking at by stimulating, by either holding, tapping, or mentally focusing on those points, that you are stimulating the acupoints that send signals to the brain and the body that reduces the hyperarousal and tension that is caused by like the trauma or the anxiety or the stress or the depression. And there are lots of acupuncture studies that are able to demonstrate that too. One was on low back pain by Shirkin et al. That used for low back pain. They did acupuncture and simulated acupuncture, which is they were just on the outside of the acupoint. They're not inserting a needle. They just have it on the outside edge of the acupoint. And then the standard of care was medication. Both the acupuncture and the placebo simulation, they didn't have the needle going in, but they're on the outside edge of the acupoint. Both of those were superior to medication. So this was a really classic study. And of course, they were acupuncturists, so they were quite disappointed that the simulated one was just as effective, no significant difference with the acupuncture. But I give them a lot of credit because a lot of the drug studies, if they had that, they said, oh, we won't publish this. They published it. So we were very happy because actually we had trouble getting funded for studies, and they were able to publish that. So we look at, if you just activate the outside edge of the acupuncture, it's like doing acupuncture without the needles. Okay. So the thought field therapy can work for a whole bunch of things. Somebody mentioned pain, anxiety, stress, of course, anger, rage. Can also work with fatigue and fear, phobia, trauma, of course, worry, guilt, anger, rage, a whole bunch of things. So we're going to look at first, starting with getting us centered and grounded. And if you make a fist, you notice that there's a little bump here on the blade of your hand, like We sometimes call this the karate point because, you know, when they do karate demonstration, they do this, and they break the brick with a 2x4. I used to think they were aiming on the brick, but what they're doing is activating your small intestine meridian, which is where the line crosses your palm and ends where you have, if you make a fist, you feel that little fold there where the line crosses your palm. If you tap there, or press and release, or massage there on the blade of your hand, that gets you centered, it gets you grounded, lessens negativity or self-doubt. So you can do that all by itself to get you centered, to get you grounded, lessen negativity or self-doubt. It is a polarity reversal that gets you grounded and helps increase positive polarity. It's a healing polarity. And what we're going to now do is work on frustration, anger, and stress. So we're going to start with getting you centered and grounded with the karate point on the side of your hand. And then we're going to do the last digit of your tiny finger for your heart meridian. So it's between your tiny finger and your ring finger. It's right on the side of the nail bed of the last digit. So between the tiny finger and your ring finger, right on the side of the nail bed. Yes. If you use 2 fingers there, you're bound to get that point. That is your heart meridian. The side of the hand was your small intestine meridian. This tiny finger is your heart meridian, so it tends to bring down the heart rate. We can actually bring down blood pressure using anxiety, stress treatments. We can do maybe 20 points off the top and 5 to 10 off the bottom finger by using their meridian points. Okay, so this is for, we're working on the anger, frustration, bringing down the heart rate. And then now we're going to go from the corner, outside corner of your eye. If you can move horizontally to where the eye socket is, your eye bone, eye socket is here. If you can massage there on the outside edge of your eye. That is your gallbladder meridian. And it's very helpful for when we have intense frustration, anger. Very good. And because it's so close to the eye, and we might be upset, most people, it's preferable that we do a massage here, because it's so close to the eye, you don't want to tapping here, and maybe if you're upset, you whisk you and hit your eye. So we don't want to do that. So just to massage all the points, you can do either side or both. You can press and release, massage, or tap. And like we talked about earlier, you can also do it mentally, which I'll show you after. So that's for the gallbladder. And the last point on the anger frustration is straight down for your nipples, the bottom of the rib cage is your liver meridian. You can do either side or both. So you can either tap, press and release, or massage the liver meridian. It's bottom, right under the rib cage, your liver meridian. So that's all for the, we got centered, we got the anger, frustration, and now we're going to deal with the stress and anxiety, the next 4. So the beginning of the eyebrow for your bladder. And you can do either side or both. You can tap, press and release, or massage. Bladder meridian. Then on the bone under the center of your eye is your stomach meridian. You can massage or tap there under your eye for your stomach meridian. Very good. Then, one hand width under your arm is your spleen meridian. So you can use your whole palm to either tap, press and release, or massage it. You can do either side, or you can do both, like you're giving yourself a hug under your arms. That is your spleen meridian. And if anyone has difficulty for one reason or another to reach any point, you can extend your reach. It doesn't have to be your hand. So if it's hard to reach under the arm, we can extend our reach with something. It can be, as a kid had really hard time with, he had very handicapped arms, so he would use his stuffed animal that had long reach, and he would do that with something to extend the reach under the arm for your spleen. And then the last one for the stress and anxiety, between your two collarbone notches, if you go down an inch, over an inch, then you're under the collarbone. So if you can tap there, under the collarbone. Good. And usually when we're working with someone, before we actually get into it, we would find out how high the level of distress is. So when you think about the frustration, anger, and stress, think back before we started and look at how high was the distress, your frustration, anger, stress. Think about that before we started. How high was it? How many had a 10? Okay, how many had a 9? Okay, how many had an 8? Okay, how many had a 7? Okay, this is a very calm group. How many had a 6? Okay, good. How many had a 5? How many had a 4? How many had 3? Okay. How many had 2? 1? Okay. And how many were 0 before we started? Okay, some of you are there. Okay, so now look at, after doing the tapping, is there any change? How many people notice the change, that there's a change? Yes, very good. So what we're looking at is we're wanting to bring it down. When we're bringing it down, then we can look at where we go next. So we have a reduction. So when you look at the reduction, let's see. Can somebody say how many points down there from a 0 to 10, their sub drop? How many? 3. Okay, good. Anybody else have a number? You can raise your hand with the fingers. How many points down was your sub?